California is enormous. The third largest state, more than 160,000 square miles, with a population larger than all of Canada. Most people picture beaches, freeways, and the Hollywood sign. They do not picture the rest of it. Because beyond the coast lies a state of granite spines, trackless desert, and forests so dense that people walk into it and are never seen again. A German family who drove into the hottest place on Earth and died walking toward a base they never reached. A 14-year-old who stepped behind a row of trees in full view of her group, leaving only a camera lens. A dam named after a rock shaped like the devil, where children kept vanishing one by one. And at number 1, 5 men, a working car left in a snowbound forest, and one of them found starving in a cabin stocked with food. If you like deep dives into the strange edges of the map, subscribe. We post a story like this every week. Today we are counting down 12 locations in California where people disappear. Number 12, the Sierra Nevada Air Corridor, the Nevada Triangle. Draw a line between Fresno, Reno, and Las Vegas, and you enclose about 25,000 square miles of sky. Beneath the western edge of that triangle runs the high granite spine of the Sierra Nevada. Alpine lakes, snowfields, and almost no flat ground. The legend says thousands of aircraft have vanished here over 60 years. That number is disputed. Experienced pilots say the truly unaccounted for total is closer to a dozen. The mystery, such as it is, has a sober explanation. The Sierra generates its own weather with violent updrafts and downdrafts called mountain waves that can throw a small plane into a ridge in seconds. The wreckage then disappears into terrain no one can easily reach. The most famous name attached to it is Steve Fossett, a record-setting aviator who took off from a Nevada ranch on September 3, 2007 for a short flight and did not come back. A month of searching found nothing. His identification cards turned up over a year later, found by a hiker in the Sierra. The crash site and eventually 2 bone fragments confirmed by DNA followed. Here is the detail that stops people cold. While crews searched for Fossett's plane, they found the wreckage of 8 other aircraft no one had ever located. The mountains were not keeping one secret. They were keeping 9. Number 11. Humboldt County and the Lost Coast. The Black Hole. Locals have a name for this stretch of foggy Northern California coastline. They call it the Black Hole. Humboldt County has the highest per capita rate of reported missing persons in the entire state, and it is not a large place, around 136,000 people, in a county established in 1853. But the story is more complicated than the legend. A large share of those numbers has a quiet, human explanation. Humboldt sits inside the Emerald Triangle, California's cannabis-growing heartland. Workers come from everywhere to disappear into the hills for weeks at a time, with no cell service. Families report them missing. Many of them come back, but no one tells the authorities, so their names stay in the database. The Black Hole is in part a paperwork problem. That said, the genuine cases are real and unsettling. In December 1977, Mary Stewart and her 2 small children, ages 2 and 1, vanished from a homestead in Honeydew. Their station wagon was found on a logging road. The case was reopened in 2009 and remains unsolved. The Lost Coast Trail itself runs along beaches that flood at high tide. Whole sections vanish under the water, then reappear. It is a place where the line between leaving and being lost was never very clear. Number 10. Mount Shasta. The mountain that swallows people. Mount Shasta is a single, snow-capped volcano rising 14,179 feet over the forests of Siskiyou County. It is still active, and it carries one of the strangest reputations of any mountain in America. Some people will tell you there is a crystal city called Telos hidden inside it, inhabited by survivors of a lost continent called Lemuria. Others report UFOs. None of this has any evidence behind it. What it has is staying power. A mythology built up over more than a century, drawing seekers from around the world and giving the mountain its nickname among paranormal writers, the Shasta Triangle. Strip the folklore away, though, and a real pattern remains underneath it. People go up this mountain and do not come down. In May 1999, a 69-year-old hiker named Carl Landers set out with two friends to reach the summit. He was an experienced outdoorsman. He fell behind, and then he was gone. Professional rescue teams searched the mountain and found no trace of him. 25 years later, not a single clue has surfaced. The legends get the attention. But the mountain does not need a crystal city to be dangerous. Thin air, sudden whiteouts, and exposed alpine rock are enough. Carl Landers walked up a real mountain, and a real mountain is what kept him. Number 9. The Trinity Alps Wilderness, the Granite Maze. Experienced hikers carrying GPS units have walked into this wilderness and not walked out. That is the thing people underestimate about the Trinity Alps. From a distance, they look like a postcard: alpine granite, glacial lakes, clean air. Up close, they are a trap. The terrain is steep, the trails are few, the brush is dense, and there is almost no cell coverage. Day hikers wander off the path, lose all sense of direction in featureless granite, and die of a fall or exposure within a short distance of safety. Then the terrain hides them. In June 2017, two women from Southern California, ages 50 and 48, set out on a day hike off the Boulder Lake Trail. They became lost. Both died of exposure. A teenager with them survived. In 2014, a 59-year-old man named Stephen Morris disappeared on a group hike near Billy's Peak. The recovery is the part that lingers. All anyone ever found of him were microscopic fragments of human tissue scattered along a trail, enough to legally confirm his death, and almost nothing else. These are not unexplained disappearances. They are the opposite. The explanation is just brutally simple. The mountains here do not need a mystery. They have gravity and weather, and that is plenty. Number 8. The San Gabriel Mountains in the Angeles National Forest, the wilderness in LA's backyard. You can see this place from the freeways of Los Angeles. A national forest established in 1908, rising directly behind a metro area of millions. That proximity is exactly what makes it dangerous. Because it looks so close and so accessible, people treat it casually. Then they meet the real thing. Winter ice near the summits, steep brush-choked drainages, and rivers that turn lethal with snowmelt. Several of the people who vanish here are not taken by anything. They fall or they drown, and the terrain carries the body somewhere searchers cannot easily follow. In January 2023, the British actor Julian Sands disappeared hiking the Baldy Bowl Trail on Mount Baldy. His remains were not found until June. That same winter, a 62-year-old named Robert Gregory went missing and was later found below the summit of Mount Islay.
A Rule 1100 is $70 to $85, and a Johnson pump at the same rating costs $66.
Swept away trying to cross the San Gabriel River, the current taking her downstream in front of her friends. And in June 2025, a 60-year-old woman named Monica Reza vanished near Mount Waterman. When the initial search ended, her case went to the Sheriff's Missing Persons Unit. You can stand where some of these people were last seen and still see the skyline of the city. And they still disappear. Number 7. Joshua Tree National Park. The heat doesn't negotiate. A person can park at a trailhead here, walk into the desert on a day hike, and not be found for 12 years. That is not a figure of speech. Billy Wasco was a fit 65-year-old Vietnam veteran and an experienced hiker. On June 24, 2010, he set out for a day hike in Joshua Tree. His car was found at the Juniper Flats trailhead. He was not. What followed became one of the most exhaustively documented searches in American history. A retired engineer named Tom Mahood spent years building probability maps of where Iwasco could be. The body was finally found in February 2022, nearly 12 years later, outside almost everyone's predicted zone. The danger here is a specific combination. The terrain is surreal and repetitive, endless piles of identical granite boulders and Joshua trees, so people lose their bearings. And the heat is lethal, regularly topping 100 degrees with no shade and no water. Disoriented hikers push forward instead of turning back and dehydrate. Iwasco is not the only one. In 2017, a young couple, ages 20 and 21, disappeared in similar heat. In 2023, a 25-year-old named Trammell Evans vanished. Skeletal remains believed to be his were found later. The same engineer who searched for Owasco also helped solve a disappearance in Death Valley, a little further down this list. The desert does not hide people out of malice. It just waits. Before we keep going, a quick favor. If these stories are holding your attention, a thumbs up helps more people find them. And in the comments, tell me about a place that felt bigger and emptier than you expected. From here, the stories get closer to home and harder. Number 6. Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. The Man Who Found the Lost. For 28 years, Randy Morganson was the person you wanted looking for you. He was a backcountry ranger in the High Sierra with an almost uncanny ability to find missing hikers. In July 1996, the man who found the lost became the lost. He failed to check in by radio from his station near Bench Lake. When rangers investigated, the evidence ruled out the easy answers. His service revolver was left behind. His car sat untouched. His bank accounts went unused. He had not walked away to start a new life, though a letter that arrived postmarked after his disappearance briefly made people wonder. The official search ran about 13 days with helicopters, dog teams, and dozens of volunteers. They found nothing, not a footprint. It took 5 years. In July 2001, a trail crew member wandered off route and found his remains. The Park Service concluded what had likely happened. Crossing a snow-covered creek in terrain he had patrolled for decades, Morganson fell through a rotten snow bridge, broke his leg, and died of his injuries and the cold. Here is the part that still unsettles the rangers who knew him. His park radio was found resting on top of the falls, switched on, not below with the rest of him. On top and turned on. The best tracker in the mountains was hidden by them for half a decade, a few feet from a trail other rangers had already crossed. Number 5. Mount San Gorgonio, the last photo. In 1991, searchers developed a roll of film from a camera they found high on a mountain. One frame was a close-up of a boy's face, just his eyes and nose. It appears to have been taken after he went missing. It is one of the last images of Jared Negrete, and he has never been found. Jared was 12 years old. Mount San Gorgonio, known locally as Old Grayback, is the highest peak in Southern California, around 11,500 feet. On July 19, 1991, Jared was on his first overnight backpacking trip, climbing toward the summit with his Boy Scout troop. He was less experienced than the other boys, and he struggled on the climb. Near the top, he fell behind. The decision that has haunted this case ever since was a simple one. The group went on ahead, expecting him to follow at his own pace. He never reappeared. A search lasted 16 days. Crews found his backpack, his food wrappers, and his camera. They found no body, no blood, no drag marks, and no remains in the brush on the slopes below. Just his gear scattered along the route and that single photograph. He remains officially missing today, listed by the California Department of Justice. Decades later, amateur searchers still hike that mountain looking for him. A 12-year-old boy fell a little behind on a trail in clear daylight with his troop just ahead. That was all it took. Number 4. Death Valley National Park. 4 miles from rescue. Death Valley is the hottest place on Earth. In summer, the valley floor can reach near 130 degrees. This is where, in July 1996, a German family of 4 drove in and disappeared. Egbert Rimkus, 34, his partner Cornelia Meyer, 28, and 2 boys, ages 11 and 4, were on a road trip through the American West. They turned onto a remote canyon route in extreme heat, and at some point their rented minivan became stranded. In October, a park ranger found it abandoned in the backcountry near Anvil Canyon with 3 flat tires. Of the family, there was no sign. Despite around 200 searchers, the only clue anyone turned up was a beer bottle, more than a mile from the van. For 13 years, that was the entire story. And into that silence rushed every theory imaginable. That the family had faked their deaths to start over in Costa Rica. That a cult had killed them, even that the government had made them disappear. The truth, when it came, was quieter and far worse. In November 2009, an amateur searcher named Tom Mahood and his friend Les Walker found human remains. DNA confirmed Rimkus. Remains consistent with Meyer and the older boy were identified later. The family had done something that makes terrible sense in the moment. Stranded, they walked toward a Navy base they believed was close, guided by a map that misrepresented the terrain. In the desert, mountains that look a few miles off are often 20. They came within about 4 miles of the base boundary before the heat killed them. The youngest boy, Max, was 4. His remains have never been found. Number 3. Yosemite National Park. Gone behind the trees. It was a clear summer day. There was no storm, no cliff, no struggle. A 14-year-old girl walked a few hundred feet downhill toward a lake to take a photograph in full view of her group, stepped behind a stand of trees, and was never seen again. Her name was Stacy Aris. On July 17, 1981, she was on a horseback trip with her father, staying at the Sunrise High Sierra Camp, about 9,400 feet up in Yosemite's high country. She wanted to photograph the lake below the camp. An elderly member of the group walked partway with her, then sat down to rest. She continued on alone, passed behind some trees, and that was the last anyone saw of her. What followed was one of the largest searches in Yosemite's history. Up to 100 people, dog teams, climbers, divers, around 40 hours of helicopter time, over 9 days. They found exactly one thing, a single lens from her camera lying along the trail. No clothing, no footprints, no remains. It is that total absence of evidence that made the case a magnet for paranormal theorists for decades. But the rational explanation has always been there. A fall into the steep, brushy terrain around the camp, into a spot no searcher happened to look. She is still listed as missing by the National Park Service. The camp is still there. The trail is still there. The lake is still there. She just is not. Number 2. Devil's Gate Dam and the Arroyo Seco. The Gate to Hell. The place is named for a rock. In the Arroyo Seco near Pasadena, there is a stone formation that genuinely resembles a horned demonic profile, and a flood control dam was built beside it in 1920. From there, the reputation only grew darker. In the late 1930s and 40s, Jack Parsons, a brilliant co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and a serious occultist, performed rituals near this site, at times alongside L. Ron Hubbard, the future founder of Scientology. Indigenous Tongva tradition had already marked the gorge as a place apart, and then, in the 1950s and 60s, children began to vanish here. In 1956, 2 children, Brenda Jo Howell and Donald Lee Baker, disappeared. In March 1957, 8-year-old Tommy Bowman was hiking with his family, ran ahead, rounded a corner hidden by bushes, and was gone in seconds. For years, this was told as a supernatural story, a literal gateway to hell-swallowing children. But here the legend collides with something far more real. More than a decade later, a serial killer named Mac Ray Edwards confessed to murdering 2 of those missing children. He had worked in freeway construction, and the implication was that the bodies were hidden in poured concrete. So the most frightening part of the legend turned out to have a human author after all. Most of it, because Tommy Bowman was not one of Edwards' victims. He rounded a corner in front of his own family in broad daylight, and to this day, no one knows where he went. Number 1. Plumas National Forest, the American Dyatlov Pass. The forest road is narrow and climbing, walled in by dense conifers and deepening snow. It is February, a heavy snow year, and the drifts are piling against the trees. There is a car here, a 1969 Mercury Montego, stopped in a snowbank on a remote mountain road, far from anywhere it has any reason to be. The engine works. There is a quarter tank of gas in it. A few people could push it free of the drift without much trouble, but the keys are gone, the doors are shut, and there is no one inside. Around it, in every direction, there is nothing but forest and falling snow and silence. That car belonged to 5 friends from Yuba City, and how it got there is one of the strangest unsolved cases in American history. On February 24, 1978, 5 men, Ted Wire, 32, Jack Madruga, 30, Bill Sterling, 29, Gary Mathias, 25, and Jack Hewitt, 24, drove to Chico to watch a college basketball game. They were close friends, several of them living with intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions, and they were deeply attached to their routines. They were expected straight home. Instead, the car turned up days later, abandoned on that snowbound forest road more than 70 miles in the wrong direction. There was no mechanical reason to stop. There was no reason for them to be there at all. And rather than stay with a working vehicle, all five had walked off into the snow on foot, in the dark, dressed for a basketball game. A blizzard shut down the first search. Then, on June 4th, as the snow melted, motorcyclists found a body. Ted Wire had reached a Forest Service trailer about 20 miles away. And this is the detail that has haunted the case for nearly 50 years. The trailer was stocked with enough food to keep all five men alive for months. There was a stove, there were blankets. Wire had wasted away over roughly 3 months, losing much of his body weight, and had used almost none of it. 3 of the others were found dead of exposure in the surrounding forest. Gary Mathias was never found. No one has ever explained why 5 men left a working car to walk into a freezing forest, or why a man surrounded by food and warmth slowly died inside it. Their families are still asking. The case is still open. 5 men drove home from a basketball game, and the mountains kept 4 of them and simply erased the 5th. California sells itself as sunshine and coastline. Most of it is empty, vertical, and unforgiving. For me, the one that stays is the Yuba County 5. A working car, a cabin full of food, and 4 men who never found their way back. Which of these surprised you most, and which place did I miss? Tell me in the comments and subscribe. There is a new one every week.